Hey friends, welcome to another video. In this one we're going to be talking about 12 more PlayStation 1 Shoot 'em Ups. Let's get to it. Like the rest of our videos, we're going to be putting the ESRB rating in this corner so you know what you're getting into if you're looking to buy the game. First game in the video we're going to talk about is called ThunderForce V. The game is a polygonal shmup, so that it may look a little bit rough compared to shmups that are coming out today. However, back in the day, this was awesome. You will always have your primary two shots, a forward and a rear shot. However, as you're playing through, you'll pick up weapon upgrades, which will help put a hurting on the enemies. Prior to starting your run, you'll have the ability to select the order of the stages you want to play in, which is something a few other shmups do. The levels are fairly short, but they are varied. If you run out of lives during the stage, you will have to start back at the beginning of the stage again, which definitely adds to the difficulty of the game overall. The game does have its fair share of environmental hazards to look out for. However, hitting the ground won't take you out. Rocks and dangling sacks of fire, though, will, so be careful. As for options in the game, you have 3 difficulty levels to select: training, normal, and hard. You can see the different difficulty gameplay options here. I would definitely say that the difficulty steps up nicely at each level. The stages will need some memorization as well though, knowing that a big baddie is going to come out at this point and do this attack that you just have to dodge a certain way is how you have to get through this game. Playing through the game, you can only continue up to 3 times, so that definitely adds to the overall difficulty of the game. If you can find this cheap and it's within your budget and you're digging the gameplay, I'd recommend picking this one up. The second game in this video that we're going to cover is called the Raiden Project, and with this one you're actually getting Raiden 1 and 2, both of which are great multiplayer vertical shmups. So there's a lot to go through here. Covering the first Raiden, first, it's a 2-player game that has a lot of charm, and even from this gameplay you can see why the series is still going strong. The small details add so much, given the age of these games. The people running for their lives over the bridge, or the livestock in the field. How the latches open up for the first boss, the way the bigger enemies take damage as they're taking fire. It does a lot to add to the details of the game. The music is good as well. It's a bit tinny, but it's not harsh on the ear. The display field is also wider than your display, so as you're flying to the left, the ship's gonna go left, but so is the display field. Same thing when you go to the right. As you're playing through and taking down enemies, some will drop an upgrade cube. They can be picked up when they're red or blue. When red, it will upgrade the regular shot. When blue, it'll upgrade to lasers. When you die, you will lose all your weapon upgrades as well, so that's something to be very mindful. It's not the end of the world, but it can get a bit frustrating when you've gotten your arsenal built up. There are also missile weapons and upgrades for them as well, which can be found. Another upgrade that you might see is this floating P. What that does is it upgrades your weapons all the way. Definitely a handy find. One of the nice aspects of the game is once you've loaded in and you're in the game, there's no loading screens. So once you've defeated a boss, you just roll right into the next area. It's really nice. Unless you want to give your thumb a workout, you definitely want to use the turbo fire button here as it helps out as well. As for options, there are quite a few that can be tweaked. Number of credits for continues, and start back mode, which if you die sets you back to a checkpoint location versus letting you keep going right from where you died. Definitely not for the faint of heart. The overall colors of the game and the backgrounds are bright. The incoming shots are all orange, which sets them apart nicely from the background and makes them easier to see. Now we're going to move on to Raiden 2. Off the bat, you can very clearly see the graphical improvements over the first game. The display area, just like the first game, scrolls left and right based on your ship's position, showing that the playfield is larger than your normal display. The way the enemies explode and how each of them uniquely explode adds a lot of character to the game as well. The weapon upgrades was given a new weapon, the Purple Beam, and it's beautifully destructive. With this new weapon, once it locks on within reason of movement, you can dodge incoming shots and it will keep firing on the enemy. They also changed the full upgrade from the letter P to the letter R for some reason. The missiles have been changed as well, so there are heat-seeking or homing missiles, and then there's just regular shot missiles, each of which also have their own upgrade paths. As far as the bomb goes, you have a cluster bomb, and then you also have like one giant bomb, and those are the two main differences for that. When you die, the power-ups aren't immediately lost either. They do fly out from your death point. However, you have time to go and collect them again to regain their abilities. Just be careful with this because the colors will change, so if you get 3 reds and then a purple, you're just going to end up with the purple. The difficulty options are the same as the first game, being Captain, Major, Colonel, and General. Overall, I really like this game. It's a little bit more simple, not as simple as like Xevious or something, but it's definitely fun, and I would very happily add this to my library if I didn't already have it. Third game on this list is Mobile Light Force, and this game ain't so great. And when I say it's not so great, it's not great compared to what it was based off of, which is Gunbird. It's okay. The gameplay is still the same. You just don't get any of the story. No defense of the world, no saving someone, nothing. The cover is, well, seriously, I'm not sure what they were thinking. These 3 aren't even in the game at all. At all. Alright, let's move past that. The graphics are sprite-based and play well on the PS1. You select from 5 unique characters that each have their own shot pattern and bomb abilities. As you proceed through the levels, you will receive weapon upgrades, which do lend quite a bit of a helping hand in putting down the hurt on some of the bad guys. One of the interesting aspects of the game is that the levels will come at you in random order. So on your first playthrough, it'll be different than your second playthrough and your third, which is nice, considering the story got basically removed from the game. The game is also a multiplayer co-op, so you can definitely bring a friend as well if they want to play this gimped version of Gunbird. I know this may sound negative, but this game just comes up so much shorter than what it should be, and it should be Gunbird. I would definitely recommend picking this up if you want to get this on the Sikio collection for the Nintendo Switch. I don't know if it's Alpha or Bravo, but then you'll get the full Gunbird experience. Next game on this list that we're going to talk about is called Starfighter, Sanvein. And this is very interesting. It's a very different take on the shmup genre. This is a single player game, and it's very frantic. The gameplay specifically, however, everything is timed. Selecting the next floor to beat. Yep, that's timed. Beating the floor itself. That too. And the boss stages as well. As far as difficulty options go, you have your choice of easiest, very easy, easy, medium, medium hard, hard, very hard, and hardest. You don't really select a ship, you select a shot. So you can get the spread shot, a laser shot, or an explosive shot. Then you actually choose a special shot to go along with that. So it can be either homing missiles, a laser blade, or a mine. My honest opinion, I suggest going with the homing missiles as they will, home in on the opponent. But it's also a good way to boost away from possible damage if it's timed correctly. The mechanics of this game may seem complex at first, but once you get into it, it's fairly easy. You start on a floor. Typically with the first one, you're not given an option. Then you fly in, you do battle with the enemies. You're on a timer all the time, so you don't want to dawdle. After you beat them, you'll go back to the floor select. In the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see the attack level for that floor. For the second floor you select, you'll probably go in with an attack power of 1. But if you have 2 floors already beaten, connecting to the next floor you want to take down, your attack power is going to be 2. The more floors you have adjacent to the floor you want to play, the higher your attack power is going to be. Other than that, it's basically a rush to beat the enemies as quickly as possible to conserve time. Selecting a floor will chew up your time too if you're taking too long to pick, so choose quickly. For going up against the bosses, you'll have to determine how much attack power you want to have going in, but more is definitely better. When you do take down a boss, you will receive extra time, so the crunch is relieved a little bit. The music is very fast, which goes with the game, and the background noise and sound effects add more to the hectic pace and frantic nature of this game. Overall, I really enjoyed this game. It's a budget title, and it's going to be on the cheap, but it's just different, and you don't typically see a lot of different shmups. So for that basis alone, I would definitely pick this up. The fifth game on this list is Space Invaders, and this one is a definite homage to the original on the 2600 and from the arcade. You have the option of multiplayer, so you can definitely bring a friend. For options, there's very little. Difficulty can be changed from normal to expert, and you can also change up your button configuration if you need to. They did add bosses, so after a few stages, you get to dispatch one. It's not overly difficult once you get the pattern down. Another feature they added was a special shot, and those do have a few different effects. One of the things that they added, which I am not a big fan of, is they added invisible enemies. So unless you know where you are shooting on the map that there is a void, and in that void there's an enemy, you're gonna get smoked when it comes down to the bottom and runs into your ship. Not the best, not the most fair. Overall, it's a fun game. It definitely stays true to the original. I don't know if you really need it. That's up to you. The next game on this list is called Raycrisis, and it's the third game in the Ray series. Definitely another fun one here. Starting up, you have your choice of 3 different ships. Options include changing the number of lives from 1 to 9, and the difficulty settings range from easy, normal, hard, maniac, and max. You have your primary shot and your lock-on shot for objects that you cannot shoot with your primary weapon. There is a bomb option as well, and that pretty much clears the screen except for the major enemies. One of the changes that was done for this game is that the reticle for locking onto targets moves in and out depending on your ship's movement, allowing for lock onto enemies that in previous game might have slipped by you. The stage length is fairly long, and the bosses are no joke. They each have their own challenge to them. The background music has a synthy pop sound that moves along with the action nicely. The gameplay is really quick, so enjoy the sometimes frantic pacing. The graphics and rendering of the backgrounds and enemies are all done very well. After each boss, you get a grade on your performance to see just how poorly you did. Game is definitely tough, and the enemies definitely have a knack for masking their incoming shots. That, or I just can't see them. The game overall is fun. You definitely have to know which shots will take out which enemies, as well as where they're going to come out from and how close they are and their shots they're going to fire at you. So some memorization will be needed for this. Overall, like I said, a very fun game though. Next game up is called Viewpoint, and this one is definitely unique because the viewpoint is locked in a isometric view of the battlefield. The controls are very simple in the game. You have 2 shots and the D-pad for movement. There's nothing fancy here. There's a charge-up shot too that can be used for enemies that are in a straight line or larger enemies to do more damage to. Viewpoint also has a password system, so no need for a memory card with this game. The difficulty options range from easy, normal, hard, very hard, and too hard. Because, 1 to 5 would have been too suburban. It's definitely a unique shoot 'em up with the isometric view, where some of them are more frantic or hectic. This is very much more of a memorization game, knowing that I need to shoot here to get this enemy that's coming down next. There are upgrades that can be found as you're progressing through the levels, which do help in dispersing or hurting on the enemies. There's 6 levels to Viewpoint, and with the password system, as long as you've got your memorization skills down as far as what's going on in the individual levels, I think you'll be alright getting through this one. Honestly, this isn't my kind of shmup though. I'm sure there's someone out there that's watching this and thinking, this game looks great. It's just my opinion, but I wasn't a huge fan of this. It moves very slowly, and it's all about memorization of where the enemies are, and where the traps are, and how to deal with them. Not my speed, but it may be of interest to you. Next game on the list is called Strikers 1945, and this is a World War II based shoot 'em up, but it gets kind of weird later on. The game display allows to have 2 modes, a scrolling or a static mode for the playfield, which is unique. The detail and pixel work here is wonderful. The planes flying around with their shadows cast on the ground, the exploded buildings and tanks that leave a nice carnage pile, or even just the detail of the polar ocean with the floating ice chunks in it. Even something as small as the impacting of the bullets on the enemy adds to the character of this game. The music has a quick pace and it has a nice tone to it as well, so that definitely adds to the immersion into the game. The bosses in the game all start out as normal objects, such as an aircraft carrier, a flying zeppelin ship, or a giant train. But at a certain point in the fight, they transform into a mech of some type. When you start, you select one of the 6 different aircrafts, each of which has their own shot pattern, as well as their own bomb and special shot as well. The gauge in the bottom of the screen will let you know how strong your special shot will be. The higher the level, the better it is. This will cap out as 3, so be sure to use them at that stage, otherwise you're wasting an opportunity to do a special attack. There are 7 different difficulty levels here to select from. I've picked the Goliath boss to demonstrate the differences so you can see what's going on. Another fun aspect of the game is that the levels will change their sequence, similar to Gunbird, or the not Gunbird game. It keeps you on your toes, not knowing who's coming next until you see the boss screen pop up. The loading times are very quick. I'm playing it on PS3, so that might be impacting the speed a little bit. Your mileage may vary, so let me know in the comments if it's different. There's 8 fairly quick stages to get through. The harder the difficulty, the longer they will take. I would say that the last stage definitely veers off of the World War II vine straight into the fantasy realm, but it's still all good. I did definitely enjoy this game. It gets a little weird towards the end, but as a whole, it's a very fun playthrough. Now we're going to talk about Activision classic games. Now, they're going to be basic games. They're all from the Atari 2600. They're still fun, especially if it's not something you've seen or played before, but it probably won't hold your attention for very long. Playing it this way will probably also be cheaper than picking all the games up on their own as well. Some of the games just don't seem to be playing at the right speed though, so you're going to see that in some of the footage here. I'm going to chalk it up to that because I remember these games being a little bit easier. We're going to cover 11 different games off of this desk, so we're going to go through it pretty quickly here. With Chopper Command, you're controlling a helicopter shooting down other helicopters and jets. In Crackpots, you're pushing pots onto spiders to protect the plants you're destroying from the spiders. Laser Blast is not the best. You're the flying saucer trying to destroy the cities. However, their aim is awesome and yours just kinda sucks. In Mega Mania, you're controlling the ship on the bottom, trying to take out all the other ships flying overhead. In Plaque Attack, yep, there's a Plaque Attack. It's a game where you have to protect teeth against the evils of food. In River Raid, you're controlling a jet flying only over a river. Because flying over the ground is bad. In River Raid 2, you're just trying to figure out what the hell to do next. They made it more complex than what it needed to be, and it just doesn't play well. In Sequest, you're controlling a submarine, killing sea life and other submarines trying to rescue divers. When you're full, you surface and offload them for points. In Spider Fighter, you're trying to kill the bugs by shooting them from the bottom of the screen. This one definitely seems to be running at the wrong speed. In Stampede, you're trying to lasso all the cows without them sliding off the left side of the screen. In Atlantis, you're controlling 3 turrets on the ground with which you have to shoot down flying ships. Otherwise, they'll destroy your turrets in the cities as well. If you grew up with the Atari 2600, this game might be up your alley, or if you just need to have a goof on stuff. There are some other fun games on this collection as well, which might make it more worth it. 10th game on this list that we're going to talk about in this video is Missile Command, and this one is definitely an homage to the original game. This is a remake of the old Atari 2600 game and an arcade game before that. In classic mode, you control 3 towers. With those, you have to take out incoming bombs that are targeting your turrets and cities. The turrets you control are on the bottom left, center, and right side of the screen. And with these, you shoot a missile out from them, being from either the square, the X, or the circle button. Now, if you shoot a missile to the right side of the screen from the left side turret, it's going to take longer to get there. And as you advance in levels, that's definitely going to play into the game mechanics. The single player mode here is fairly straightforward. However, I did notice a large jump in speed from level 4 to level 5. In Ultimate mode, they ratchet up the complexity by changing your turrets to aircraft and adding incoming ships that will attempt to take out your flying defense force. Rather than just focusing high in the sky, you'll need to pay attention down low as well. Keeping track of the radar will definitely help you keep that covered. There are bosses in this mode as well, which is a fun addition to the game. You'll also get the ability to spend cash on upgrades for your ships. There are 3 difficulty levels here to select from as well. In addition, you can play as multiplayer as co-op or versus too. This is definitely one of the more simple shooter games, but it's still fun, and if you like the original Missile Command and you need it on the PlayStation 1, and you like the gameplay, then check it out. Next game on this list is the Namco Museum Collection. And the version I'm playing is the Japanese version because it was cheaper to get this all as one set. Starting with the first letter in Namco, we're going to start with Bosconian, and you're tasked with finding and destroying the enemy's space stations, all while trying to dodge their fighters as well, and asteroids and space mines as well that are laying all over the place. It's definitely a fun game that, like most of the other games in the Namco set, is simple in its mechanics. However, it can get messy fairly quickly. In Galga, well, guys, it's Galaga. Your ship is locked at the bottom of the screen and can slide left or right. While the Galaga army forms on the playfield, you can begin shooting them as soon as they come out. However, they're going to be shooting at you too, so keep on your toes. Once they've assembled, they will begin their actual assault on you by breaking formation and flying down towards you, all the while shooting at you and trying to get you before you get them. Once you clear the field, it starts over. You get a challenge level every so often to rack up a few extra points as well. It's one of, if not the first shmups. Moving on to the A in Namco, Xevious is another early shmup that looks super basic by today's standards. I've never really been a huge fan of this game, but it's part of this collection and I wanted to include it for those that might enjoy it. Grobda is a tank shooting game, and that's why I'm including it here. You'll be set against other tanks that will be trying to take you out as you them. Be careful not to get too close to them when they explode, otherwise they will take you with them. This can be used to your advantage in taking out a few of them at once, so look for those opportunities as well. Gapless is a Galaga clone that has a few minor differences from its inspiration. The difficulty level seems to be a bit ratcheted up here, so in terms of the speed of the enemies coming at you. But for about 80% of the game, it's the same as Galaga. In the M section of the Namco Museum, the first game we're going to talk about is Galaxian. It's the only shoot 'em up on the M collection. Unlike Galaga, all the enemies are out at the start and you don't have any opportunity to take them down as they're coming out. Their patterns for coming down are different as well, which sets this game apart from Galaga too. The game does have the starfield scrolling in the background, which is a nice touch for an earlier game. In the C section of the Namco Museum, we're going to talk about Assault, and this is another tank game. But the setup is much more than Grobda. This game has much more open playfield, and there are a few different types of enemies here that are coming for you. One interesting gameplay mechanic is this pad. When you drive over it, it bounces you into the sky. While you're in the air, you can drop bombs on the enemies from a safe distance. It also gives you a lay of the land and where obstacles may be. The game is fun and definitely different in the style of play. I would definitely recommend checking the control settings out if you're having issues on this version, as they seemed a bit wonky to me. Ordyne is the second shmup on the C collection, and it is firmly placed in the shoot 'em up genre. The stages are really unique, and I think they hold up fairly well. As you're traveling through the stages, you'll get balloons, which you can then spend to upgrade weapons, speed, and other things. I know I'm playing the Japanese version of the game, so I try to stick with what I know in the purchase menus, but it's still a good time. The bosses cap off the end of the stage as well, and each has their own flair to them. Definitely another fun shoot 'em up to look for. On the O disc of the Namco Museum, there's Valkyrie, and this is another shoot 'em up. You play as a Valkyrie, and you're off to set things right, I think. It's definitely a cute little game, which has different power-ups to get along the way, both by helping people as well as being able to purchase items from the shopkeepers. The stages aren't overly long, so it's easy to get in and out of the game quickly. Dragon Spirit is the second shmup on the disc, and let me tell you, this game is not easy at all. Even when you set it to easy, it's not easy. I'd love to tell you more about the game, but being totally honest, I'm having problems getting through it. There are some power-ups which you can get to increase your shots as well as firepower as well. Playing this vertical shmup, you will definitely need to memorize where the enemies will come out as well as their movement patterns. Baraduk is another shooting game. The mechanics are simple, however, I would have to say that this gameplay is far from fair in terms of how or why enemies spawn. Keep in mind that these were arcade games and meant to pull quarters out of pockets. It's alright, but it's not my favorite on the disc. So the sixth disc of the Namco Museum collection only came out in Japan, but I'm going to include it here just because I have it and just for completion's sake. This way, if you want to go out and pick it up, you know that this set is available and it's a thing. So knowing it's a thing might be better for you. King and Balloons is another interesting early shmup. Your job as two guards or knights or what have you is to protect the king from killer balloons that want to kidnap him. He also doesn't seem all that upset about it when he's kidnapped either. Also, one of the mechanics here is that you actually don't have lives for your guys. The king does, but the guys manning the weapon don't. So you can take all the hits you want and you'll pop right back up after a few seconds. The balloons that are coming for the king can be popped, and when that happens, he uses his umbrella to float back down to the most insecure castle in existence. Sky Kid is the second shoot 'em up on the disc, and it's a very cutesy-ish, shmup-ish kind of game. I say that in a way because the gameplay isn't just a straightforward shmup. Your job is to take off, pick up a bomb halfway through the level, drop the bomb on a target, and then successfully land at the end of the level. The first level is fairly simple, but after that, training wheels are taken off. It's definitely a fun game to experience at least once, and you can play multiplayer here as well. The last shmup on this disc is Dragon Saber. This one is much better than Dragon Spirit in my opinion. The mechanics are much more fleshed out, and the upgrades come a bit easier as well. The graphics are improved over the first one, while quite a few more pieces move on the screen at the same time, adding to the more detail. This is one that I could see sitting down and powering through. This one is multiplayer as well, so that might help keep you going through the levels. Overall, the Namco Museum collection has a lot of different games on it. I just covered the shmups for this video, but check it out. There's a lot to unpack here, especially if you get the Japanese version all at once. The last game on this list is R-Type Delta, and this game is very frustrating, but it's also very rewarding when you do get past certain things. I really enjoyed this game. It's frustratingly hard, even on easy, but it is fun to play and enjoy all the details that they've crammed into here. The polygonal 3D gameplay is well detailed for the time period the game came out. The size of the enemies is nice, however the ship is quite large as well, which just makes you a bigger target. The slight aspect view change as you move up and down on the screen, or the depth of detail of the waterway, and how it comes out from the background definitely add to the overall depth here. At the start of the game, you select from 3 ships, each of which has their own shooting style. As you progress through the levels, you'll pick up weapon upgrades that are very much needed. However, the ball is also a shield too, which is super helpful. If you die, you'll lose all your weapon upgrades. It sucks, so you definitely want to watch the incoming shots from the enemies. As I said earlier, this is not an easy game. My sweet spot for this game is definitely on easy mode. The sound detail here is done well regarding both the sound effects and the background music. R-Type Delta is definitely one of those games that I wish they would re-release, just so that they could have a bigger audience for it. I think they would have much more people enjoying the R-Type franchise if they start re-releasing some of their older games. There you go, friends. 12 more PS1 Shoot 'em Ups. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't, give us a comment as to why or what I missed or what I could do better for next time. Other than that, have a good one. Be good to each other. Thank you for watching.